It's the wisdom. And so this is what I want to ask you. If you could speak to yourself at any age, what advice would you give yourself to stay on the path of a STEM career? We've talked about, all of the help that I do with the young girls in STEM,
Mhm.
and I'm trying to catch girls at a young age. So if you take a moment and just look back in your span, what would you say to yourself?
So I would say, as an undergraduate, I would have told myself to take as many classes as possible, uh, branch out, don't just stay focused on biology, but branch out into other things as well. Could have been
Mm-hmm.
a business class or whatever, or an engineering class, especially. Just different things. Don't always try to go for the top marks. Go for top retention more so of what you really are interested in. Because I think that was, I don't know if this is pushed at your school, but I feel like at my school, I went to a state school. So of course they want you to make good grades. They want you to, be top of the class. But I felt like sometimes that's all I was doing was making good grades, but I really wasn't understanding why these things were important until I got to grad school. So in undergrad, I would say, uh, diversify your curriculum. I would say that. Grad school, I would say, ask more questions. Even if it hurts, ask more questions. I was essentially a mute in my classes in grad school.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I was a mute, and I think I mentioned this earlier, it wasn't because I didn't know or because I wasn't familiar. It was just, I just wasn't confident enough
Yeah.
to ask questions in front of, I think it was like 40 or 50 people in those classes with us.
Right.
And, they're, uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so they're different. And, they weren't the people that I would go have drinks with on a Friday afternoon, right?
Right.
So I wasn't comfortable, but I realize now that was the time to ask a lot of questions. Someone was given their time, these experts were given their time and their opinions about a subject matter. That was the time to ask a lot of questions instead of going, back to my lab and really pondering like, oh my gosh, did I ask this right? Is this the right thing? And
Right.
so I think a lot of that could have been probably helped with just being more confident. And I think that because I came from an HBCU as well, um, I I was definitely ready for the courses, but I don't know if I was confident about my training, and I should have been. I mean, to be honest, I should have been, because I think that my training prepared me to where I got to. Right, it prepared me to be in grad school with all these other, well prepared students. But I still think my, again, soft skills probably were not up to par, and because some people were super confident regardless of what type of training they had, and they asked a lot of questions. And in my head, sometimes I feel like, what the heck is that? And so I just think that's one of the things that I look back on now. I just wish I would have asked more questions, even if I felt like, I may have been ridiculed or laughed at. I ask more questions because you're not the only one with that question in your head. That's something that I realized too, is that most times when you have a question, somebody else has that same question. They're also
Right.
probably fearful to ask that question. Um, so I think that was really important, to diversify your curriculum, ask more questions in grad school, and postdoc, be realistic.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
be realistic. And so my biggest dream was to be a college professor.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
so um, yeah, so my biggest dream, I always love working with students. I love energy from students. But I think that being realistic kind of taught me as well was that, hey, I may not be able to directly teach kids or teach students every day in a university setting, but that doesn't have to cut off my interaction with students or my interaction with mentoring. And
Right.
so I think that when I say be realistic, I live in an area where there are a couple of, UABs or, medical schools. So out of that couple, the competition is very high, and was that really my goal, or was my goal honestly to just always have my foot in the community somewhere? And I think when I started being more realistic in my postdoc, I said, hey, I do want to work, I do want to be in science, but how can I be useful in science even if I'm not in an academic setting? And so that was something that weighed heavily on me, because we come from, you know, a university that puts out really top people and they all get academic positions. And here I was finishing a postdoc and I was not looking for an academic position. And so I think that when I look back on things, I was like, okay, but Betty, you have to be realistic with, you know, your retention. The retention rate for you know, California is everyone wants to stay in the same place. You don't want to move. So what are my options? And also, like, what are your real goals? Is your goal just to have a title? Because sometimes I do get caught up sometimes. Like, wait, I want to be at the university level, hanging out, doing curriculum-based, you know, inquiry-based stuff, having fun with the girls, you know, on these group chats. But I also thought, like, hey, my science can be just as cool, but maybe I won't be the principal investigator. And I mean, that's just something that comes with a lot of humility, I think, a lot of times. And I keep saying, because we were taught that. I feel like at, you know, UAB, we come from old school, you know, science, old school thought of, you know, here are your steps. This is what you need to do to get there. And if you can't get there, why? What is the reason why?
You know, it's just hearing you talk, and I'm like, oh, you know, I saw Betty's trajectory so differently, because for me, it was like, oh, Betty's a risk taker, because you're right. You know, we were trained to be academians. And when, you know, you were in an academic position, you was like, no, I'm going to this route. And I was like, oh, she gave it up. She's going where? She's doing what? And so, you know, in the back of my mind, because, you know, you like my little sister, I'm screaming and fearing for you. And it's like, what is Betty gonna do? And then just to see, and then when things came full circle like they did, I was like, Betty, I knew all along. I should have followed Betty. You know, she's where it's at. You know, because I can't say being in academia is always, you know, it's bed of roses. But I just saw you as a risk taker and really doing your own thing, you know, so on the line of what I think of millennials at this time, them charting their own course and really doing things in an non-traditional, unconventional way. Right. And so I think I really like your story, because it shows that you don't have to go on that traditional path that everybody thinks you should, that, you know, there are so many different paths. Just choose one and go with it. And I'm glad to see that you realize that, you know, I want to be in the community, and you are. I see you all the time. You're still doing so much in the community, but you're also, you know, found your path of science and how you wanted to make your own difference. So